Um, Hi, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us for this week's A11yTalks. Today we have Jason Cortes with us. He's a full stack developer coming to us from New York. And he's been showing me actually at camps a lot about Pa11y over the last 2 years. And I was really excited that he was going to be able to join us today and share this. He recently spoke at Design for Drupal Boston, giving a presentation on how to test your site. And truth be told, halfway through, he cheesed out and made the audience actually learn and do it. So there's a good chance he's going to actually force you to learn a few things today, too. But we're excited to have him present with us today. And I'm going to be shutting off my video and being quiet in a moment, I promise. But in the meantime, if you find yourself with questions, please feel free to tag us on Twitter, A11yTalks, or just type right here in the chat, and we'll definitely get back to you. Or get those questions to Jason, I should say, quickly. He's agreed to answer a few in process. However, if they tend to add up, we might hold your questions to the end, so that way we can make sure he has time to present all of his materials. So with that, Jason. Oh, and just one other quick warning to everybody. Everything is being recorded, and all the chat transcripts and videos will be made public. So if you have a sense of humor like I do, you might want to edit. All right, and with that, I really am going to stop talking.
All right, well, thank you, Donna, for the great introduction there. So again, my name's Jason Cortes. I've been doing development for quite a while. I actually got into the accessibility arena early on in my web development career. It's something that they don't teach you in college as you're taking your courses. I, initially started off with your basic HTML and a server-side language, but, I thought I had kind of covered all my bases until I came across a user who needed accessibility features built into a website, and it was kind of an eye-opening experience. I had the fortunate pleasure of having someone take me under their wing and kind of give me their tutelage with respect to accessibility and the WCAG standards. So I've been doing this for so many years now. I actually incorporated a lot of the accessibility concepts that I learned into a usability group that we had started here in Albany, New York. That's called Albany UX. You can find that at albanyyux.org. But it's kind of taking things from the approach of universal design premise, encompassing both usability and accessibility into one. Today's topic is actually going to be on the Pa11y Dashboard. If you're not familiar, there was a great team out in Europe that put together this amazing little tool that is powered by the HTML code sniffer accessibility crawler. And it presents all the data into a nice, easy-to-read format that, as an end user, it's very easy to manipulate and add content to and have automatically scan your sites on a daily basis. So if you're in a position where you are maintaining more than one website, this is definitely a great tool to have in your tool bag. So with that, I'm going to actually give you guys a hands-on tour of actually building the Pa11y Dashboard from start to finish here. So it's been encompassing, and we're going to cross quite a few technologies. We're going to do Git, Node, Homebrew, just because we're on a Mac here. This also can be done on a PC. It's just a matter of changing the configurations and how you do the install a little bit. So if you have questions about that, you could reach out to me later, or we could discuss that after the presentation wraps. So with that said, Pa11y is more than just a dashboard. It has a command line interface tool, has a web service that you can use, and it's also something that you can integrate into like a workflow process if you have continuous integration, such as like Travis, for example, or Jenkins. So those are just kind of task runners that build your websites for you. So I'm sure most of you are acquainted with Drupal websites, and that's actually what we use here as well. So let's see, getting things set up. So the easiest way to install this is to use Homebrew, which is a package manager. Package manager, not to get too verbose here, is a tool that just lets you install applications from the command line. So in this case, I'm going to actually pull up a terminal here and show you how this works. So I'll explain some of these commands that I'm using shortly to navigate around here. Okay, so it's important to know where you're at in this command line tool. The easiest way to do that is through an ls command. That command kind of tells you what folders and files are in a directory that you happen to be in. This area here happens to be the name of the directory, and it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea as to whether you're inside the directory or not. Another useful command is the change directory with the ... This will allow you to go up a directory. So you can see, continue up. Here I'm at my user group for the Macintosh here, but I can just as easily go back down to desktop. And if you hit the tab key as you're typing, it'll autocomplete the path for you, which is a useful thing to know. And in this case, we're going to go back to that Pa11y folder that I just had set up. So here we are. So first step, I'm going to take you through installing Brew on a Macintosh PC. You're going to go to the Brew website here, which is just brew.sh. And it's very simple. They give you the command to type in. In this case, I'm just going to copy it. And you literally just open up your terminal and paste that in there. And that'll do a lot of the legwork for you. So once I hit enter here, you're going to see that it will begin the install process. On this machine, I happen to already have this installed, so I'm going to escape this install process. But if you're following along, you can just simply hit enter. It'll pull down the required files that it has, and you'll have Homebrew installed locally. Okay, so let me just get back here. So Pa11y is a full-on application. It's written in Node and utilizes a Mongo database, which is where it stores all the information, all the crawl data that it collects from a website, all the results from the accessibility scan. That's all stored in a database. This just happens to be the Mongo database that we're using here. So to utilize Brew, you prefix your install request with the brew command here. So brew install, then we're going to install this database tool. So let's get back over to our terminal here. We'll just paste that in there. And you'll see that this will actually phone home and do an installation for me. So it goes to contact the package management directory that's out there, and we'll pull down that Mongo database application for me. As you can see with this warning message that I'm getting here, it's already been installed on my system. Next, we're going to need Node.js, which is what the Pa11y Dashboard is built in. So again, we're just going to copy that brew command and paste that in as well. And again, forgive like the verbose nature of this and all the technicalities, but it's a prerequisite to getting this system up and running. So you can see here as well that Node has been installed, so I don't need to do that again. And last but not least is Git, which is a tool for managing version control and the source file behind Pa11y. So let's go back to our command line and paste that in as well. So we've only fired off 3 commands. That's all we're going to need to get the Pa11y dashboard running. So let's see, we'll go ahead and hit OK to that. I should get the same error or not. I guess it's updating Git. But you can see this is a real fast process. Okay. Another good command to know from the command line is this clear one, which will get all of that jargon out of your way as you begin to work with this stuff. So, as I was saying here, we'll discuss this in a bit. The Git version control is what's going to let us pull down the Pa11y application. So in order to do that, we're just going to access the Pa11y website, which I got this link from the previous slide here, right? So right here is where we're going to be able to download it. We click this little clipboard icon here, and it's just going to copy this text that exists here. We're going to go back to our terminal and actually give it a command. So in this case, it's going to be git clone, followed by that address that we're going to paste right in. And this is like the meat and potatoes of it all. This is like the major part. Here you're pulling down the entire code base of the Pa11y. So if I were to show what's in this directory now, you can see all the Pa11y, so the source code is there already. So let's go ahead and change into that directory and do a, when you download all the files, you have to install them. So in this case, we're going to, you know, actually it would be easier if I were to follow the directions that they provide you on the Pa11y website. So right here is effectively what we're following along with. So you'll need to clone this repository locally, which is what we just did, and install the dependencies. So this command right here, with the npm application that we downloaded earlier, is going to do the install of the Pa11y dashboard for us. So that's all you're going to need to type while you're in this Pa11y dashboard directory. So let's go ahead and hit enter, and you'll see that it's actually building the Pa11y dashboard in the background for us here. So we'll let that cook for a little bit. And let's see. Probably the next step that we're going to look at is kicking off the database. We have to tell the database to run. So right now it's not running. And once this finishes up its install, oh, that was quick. 35 seconds, we built the entire Pa11y dashboard. We're going to use this command that I just showed you here, the brew services start Mongo database, and that's going to start up the database that we're going to use to store all the results that Pa11y is collecting. So Pa11y itself will connect to that database because it knows where it's at already, and you won't even really have to do anything further than that. So let's go and kick that off. In this case, I already have it running, but if you're just starting this for the first time, it'll explain that it's started up the Mongo database. Next, we'll go back to our Pa11y directions and take a look at some of the options that we have here. So the easiest thing to do would be to simply pass all the requirements in one command here. So that's what this guy is right down here. It's telling Pa11y what environment to use. In this case, it's development. And then it's calling the node application to run this index.js file. So that index.js is effectively the home page for Pa11y. So in pasting that here, we'll see that it's going to fire up the services. Now, what you have now is a running web server on your local computer. And this web server can attach to any websites that your computer can access. So if you're running something locally, for example, or if you're testing something like Target or Google's website. Now, the way to access this is through this is actually the URL here. But we're running on port 4000. So let's copy that port here. Actually change over to where we can find this. It's going to be running on localhost and you're going to want to type colon and then provide the port, which is 4000 in our case. And there you have it. You can see now that we have the Pa11y dashboard running locally here. Now, this dashboard is really intuitive and is designed to be easy to be set up once it's configured and running. So let's go ahead and click add a new URL here. So we'll just call this homepage, and we'll say, let's go test out Google's website. We provide that URL. It's a full URL, so make sure that you have the HTTPS in front of it. Next, you can specify a standard that you'd like to use. Currently, they only support WCAG 2.0, but it's in development. We'll discuss a little bit more on how to keep updated on where Pa11y's at, and actually how you can speak with the people who developed the software. So stay tuned for that at the end of the presentation. What we have here is a timeout. So if the crawl engine is waiting too long for something, we can tell it to stop waiting after a certain timeout period. This 30,000 number is in milliseconds. So this is going to wait 3 seconds before it considers itself timed out. So let's go ahead and throw that in there. And in some cases, you might have to wait for content to load to the page first. So maybe it's loading an image, a video, something dynamic with Ajax. So we can tell it to wait to make sure everything's loaded in milliseconds here as well. So we'll just say 1000 milliseconds. Task actions. This is actually pretty cool. You can have Pa11y kind of navigate and click on things for you here. So here you can see you can literally provide these commands to Pa11y in this little box over here, and it'll click on elements for you. So if you are looking to test out the navigation that you have on the website, that can be done right here in this field. Again, there's a lot of resources on how to use this, and the Pa11y website itself is just a great example of providing help and making sure that it's a community effort here. So that's like your #1 resource. Next, we have username and password fields. This is if you have like a website that is behind a firewall or something of that nature, proxy, where you have to pass credentials in order to access the page. So in this case, like say your website had basic auth enabled on it, we could provide the username here and the password, and that would give Pa11y the credentials to go ahead and sign right in there and crawl the site anyway, even though it's behind a basic authentication wall. HTML headers. You can actually add cookies and get really in depth. I guess this would kind of fall outside the scope of what we're discussing here, but something to follow up on if you really need detailed custom work. And last but not least, you have the ability to hide elements. So if you have something that you're pretty sure will consistently make the accessibility test fail, but it's a bit of a false positive, maybe there's like a contrast scenario that you've already vetted and are okay with, you can add an exemption for it here. And what it'll do is hide that element while the Pa11y engine is crawling it. The last area here is rules that you can ignore. So this goes through the entire WCAG standard, and you can kind of pick and choose which items you might not need to necessarily include. So I'm going to actually go ahead and run this by clicking Add URL. And you'll see that it's been scheduled to crawl that website. So we'll give it a little bit. New results incoming. Just to explain what I did here. This is an option for you to rerun the scan for this, we'll call it a task. and crawling that particular homepage or website that you have specified here. You can delete the task or edit it again as well. So this is just telling us the status of it. Let me just refresh the page. And here you can see that Pa11y has, in fact, in the background, crawled the website and pulled down its findings. So let's go back over to the dashboard and take a look at what we have there. So I titled the Google search homepage and specified the WCAG 2 AA standard. And these are the results that it came back with. Now, mind you, this is effectively a web page with a field on it, the Google homepage that has a search, but it's got a few concerns that it's showing us here. And it's going to literally drill down and explain exactly where those things are happening and the solution to fix that as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one. And you can see these selectors. So it's saying the HTML tag in your website, the body, and the center tag are using presentational markup. So these are definitive WCAG AA standard errors. Then there's warnings and notices as well for things that maybe Pa11y can't necessarily test and you need to like manually review at your discretion. So you can see a few things that were a concern here that didn't quite meet the guidelines. So yeah, that is kind of Pa11y in a nutshell here. If you have more than one date that the website's been crawled, Pa11y will actually give you a nice little report for the page. I wish I had an example of that, but we just built it. But it would be a pie chart. Actually, let's see if they have it on their homepage here for us to review. Okay. There you go. So this is going to actually show you changes over a period of time. So you could see November 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. So you could see the progress your team might be making on resolving those accessibility issues. And literally, we've set up and have this running in the span of 20 minutes here. So pretty easy for anyone to kind of set up and get going at home in your office, in your environment. So with that said, I was going to show you guys a bit of detail as to reaching out to the Pa11y team, because just in working with them personally, it's a great set of people. In the slide deck, there's a link to join a Slack channel, which, if you're not familiar, is like a little messaging group that you can sign up for that will be specific to just the folks that are using Pa11y. So you could speak with other people who are just getting started, maybe ask more senior folks for help. And it's a great little community that exists there. And all you would have to do is, here you can see there's 17 people hanging out there right now. Drop your email address in there and you can sign up. It'll send you an invite in your inbox. And once you click on that, you can create an account and go in there and access the community. So really good link there. As far as some of those commands that I was using earlier, provided a link to a quick cheat sheet to kind of help you out with some of those navigational things. So here you can see the ls command that I was using, the change directory. PWD will show you where you're at. Let's take a look at that one real quick. Oh, I should explain one last thing. How to close Pa11y. So Pa11y is running right now. It'll run until you turn it off. So the way to stop Pa11y from running is to actually hit the combination of Control and C on your keyboard, and that'll gracefully shut it down. So you can see that right here, Control C. Speaking to that path command, PWD, it'll tell me exactly where I'm at and where my little dashboard lives at. So you can see back here, that's my little dashboard. Those are all the files that exist for it. And it's literally just that simple. I, I, I have to say this is a great team that helped develop this. They're always looking for insight and help. And it's been just a really useful tool for our own development team here locally. So I can't speak highly enough about it. Let's see, I'm getting to just about that time, but were there any comments or questions that you guys had? I know I discussed quite a bit of technology in such a small amount of time, but I guess if you'd like clarity on anything, now's the time to ask. So,
Jason, Hector here.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for this. 2 questions for you. So first one, easy. I think MongoDB is still running. So can you show the command how to stop it?
Oh, yes. Okay. So actually for people who are, what we're getting into is running services in the background. In order to stop Mongo, we could actually tell that installer that we had, that manager of our installation packages, to stop MongoDB. That's done with this command here. So you can see that's gracefully shutting down. But another alternative would be to, more simplistic method is you can terminate the terminal that you're in, and that should shut down some of the processes for you as well. So yeah, that's how you stop MongoDB. Was there any other questions?
Yeah, so the next one that I had was more regarding the dashboard. Would it work on single page applications?
Yes, of course. You maybe would need to specify a longer timeout period to give that application time to load, depending on the scale, the scope of what you're working with. But yeah, it wouldn't have a problem traversing that.
Okay, awesome.
We have a couple of other questions too here in the chat from JP. Great presentation. Can you customize the dashboard's appearance?
In fact, you can, yes. So let's take a look-see. Well, first, let me kind of give a shout out to the Lullabots folks. On the Pa11y Dashboard website, they provide some useful resource links here. So this is a link that explains how to set up Pa11y on a DigitalOcean droplet. So actually running it on a server on DigitalOcean as a service. So maybe you're not going to be running it locally, you're bringing it into a more production environment. You can literally have this running on a server for you on a droplet that would probably cost like maybe $1 to run each month. But getting to the question, customizing the dashboard here, the Lullabots folks did a great job of modifying the dashboard to suit the needs of one of their clients here. So you could see that they've actually changed the design of the front end, which is fairly easy to do. If we were to drill into our dashboard file here, you can see, oh, give me a second. Where is it? All of our CSS information is here. Mind you, it's been compiled, but that's pretty easy to undo. But you can modify the index.js as well. 1 second. Once we look at that, you'll start to see all the HTML that is on the back end here. So it's definitely possible. You can see that on the back end, they're just passing variables that contain information. So like the site name, for example, if we wanted to change that, we could. Actually, yeah, this is kind of a MVP, MVC rather, I'm sorry, configuration here. So let me just find something that we could show you real quickly. Modules, public, route, test, view. Okay, so all the configurations here are going to be in the view. So if we modify some code back here, Pa11y Dashboard. Let's see. So, dashboard, we'll call it, right? And go back and fire up our database and services one more time. And you'll see now when I refresh the Pa11y page that I was working on, assuming I still have that here. Oh, you know what? I have to rebuild the file set. When did I change that? I'm sorry. Oh, live code demonstrations are always like the worst, but all of that is back there, and it's rather easy to work with. I think might be Bourbon, if I'm not mistaken. They have like a CSS framework that they're utilizing to build this, but it's relatively easy to get in there and modify things because the views are built out in this directory here. So the 404 pages, some of the components that it's using. So page footer, for example. No, this is all variable driven, so you would have to rebuild the code base every time. So that's that npm install function. So I'm sorry guys, I'm trying to make sure that I accommodate everybody here. So I've modified the framework here, and once this is rebuilt, it'll show the changes in the HTML for us here. So we'll start that back up, fire off our environment. Uh-oh, I seem to have broke something here. Small. 4,000. Okay, there you see it right here. So I've modified the not only the title of the page here, but also the footer as well, just by going into the view directory and modifying some code there. And it's all segmented up into the little sections of the application here. But it's pretty easy to dissect: page footer, page header, the graph itself, breadcrumbs. So not too much of a task to modify those things if you want to put in like your company logo or something like that. Another cool feature I forgot to mention here is after a while you'd have enough of these, you could have an infinite amount. From my findings, I think pushing it past 200 is really taxing on the little Pa11y server here. So something to keep in mind is the scale of the effort that you're using. Maybe if you're sniffing 200 websites, might be time to consider like a more enterprise tool. But for the most part, you'd be able to filter results by typing in things here. So if I were to type google.com, it would only show those results. So yeah, but that was about it. Were there any other questions at all?
Yes, there were. I'm really curious about how Pa11y can be adapted with customized rules, or how it could work in a CI environment. That's Claudio asked.
Okay, so let's see. I should have kind of went into more detail with that, but the Pa11y tool itself, now we'd be speaking more towards the command line tool as opposed to the dashboard, but you can run this locally, and hopefully they'll have some good examples from me here. But it walks you through the usage of Pa11y. So we already installed our node package manager earlier. It'd be as simple as just pulling the node package down and having that installed locally. And then you can, from your command line, actually execute the task that you're trying to do. So when working with a CI environment, you have that, that Travis config file or what have you. It's pretty easy to send these commands over to have Pa11y execute what you'd like. You might need to just add the Pa11y package to your build criteria there. But it's pretty easy to get those commands kicked off with like an upstream build, a pull request, or a push. So you can have Pa11y fired off every time and actually pass that URL into Pa11y as you go. So for example, if you have an application and you're just testing that one web page that's changed with the continuous integration, the CI environment, you'd be able to, as a variable, pass in that URL to Pa11y with some predefined flags. If they, let's see, oh, these are the test criteria that it's asking for here. So with those test criteria already defined, and it would execute that for you on the fly during the build process, which is pretty amazing. You get it's never going to be perfect. Obviously, you'll want to review things yourself manually, but it's more like an 80-20 rule. You can really eliminate 80% of the bad stuff here. So that's what makes Pa11y so great. Yeah, and it's got some really great detailed directions on how to use this step by step. In your config file here, that's what I was mentioning, passing the URLs into it so that it knows what it's looking for, setting defaults for Pa11y to execute with. So we recall earlier in that form, we were entering these values manually. And you could even get a little bit more fancy by having it traverse the sitemap. If your website has that, you just need to point Pa11y towards that, and it'll pick it up and run with it from there. With Pa11y also, you can do things like some smaller like visual regression, because Pa11y's utilizing things like Phantom, so you can leverage the screenshot capabilities that Pa11y would have. I mean, it'd be a bit of a modification to the code base, but you could actually add like a little image of the website that you capture on the fly to these tiles if you wanted to modify and extend this Pa11y dashboard application yourself. So hopefully that answered that question. But again, I defer to that, not the website. But yeah, so.
That's awesome. We do have more.
All right, go ahead.
Great. Hector's asking, is Pa11y testing desktop, tablet, mobile views? So basically, what kind of views are we looking at here?
So typically it's testing like a desktop configuration, but you can go into the back end and actually specify a viewport. So if in fact you wanted a desktop, a tablet, and a mobile viewport to be tested, you just provide that into the configurations for Pa11y. And those are going to be hanging out back here. Let me see if I can pull those out. Will probably be around here, but you could see it. It's kind of specifying some of the defaults here for the application and the environment. That's where you'd want to go to modify those viewports and specify what it does exactly. So hopefully that answers that question for you. Were there others?
No, I got to thank, or you got to thanks, I should say. So I think we're good there. Are there any other questions, anyone? I have not seen any on Twitter, and it looks like we're done here. Any closing thoughts, Jason, before we make this a wrap?
I guess what I would say is if you have the capacity, definitely worth considering giving back to this little team here. It's a great bunch of people, and it's so easy to contribute. All you have to do is do a pull request against their repository and GitHub here, or help them with some issues. There's some low-hanging fruit that's a little bit easier. So for example, helping out writing the documentation. Those are all great things that you can contribute back to these guys. So again, I'm just demonstrating the use of this tool. I wouldn't want to take the credit from these guys who built it, but overall, no, that was about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this information. This has been a wonderful presentation and really can help us all get going. I put Jason's Twitter handle right here in the chat, and you see the series of links there as well. We'll be posting this video to YouTube pretty soon, and it will be captioned, but give me a little bit of time on that one. If you have any other follow-up questions, please feel free to tag Jason as well as A11yTalks in your questions on Twitter, and we'll be happy to keep the conversation going. But otherwise, thank you all for coming. Thank you for participating in your questions. And Jason, thank you so much for your presentation today. It's been wonderful.
Hey, well, thanks everyone for coming by.
Have a great day, guys.